How are you, everyone? Welcome to the Charlene Show, a show which discusses taboos, social, cultural, lifestyle, religious, and human interest stories. I am your host, Charlene Taruwona. Today we're going to be talking to Mr. Mutama, who is the director of FOST, and he's going to share with us details about a report on sexual violence against boys that they conducted as an organization. Mr. Mutama, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Charlene. I'm very happy to be part of your show, and thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure. Yeah. So to start off, can you please tell us about yourself?
Right. So my name is Blessing, like you have said, and I'm the director of FOST. And basically, FOST is the acronyms, which mean Farm Orphan Support Trust. FOST is a local NGO that was established and registered in 1997 as a private voluntary organization in Zimbabwe with the aim to facilitate and support orphaned and vulnerable children. If you recall, during that period around the 90s, 97, that's when we were at the peak of HIV and AIDS, and you'd realize that a lot of people were dying because during that time we didn't have treatment for HIV. So a lot of people were dying, leaving big numbers of children that needed to be cared, and supported. So the organization was established as a response to support, those orphaned and vulnerable children. We are a member of a global alliance called Family for Every Child. And basically this alliance is an alliance made up of members that are coming from over 35 countries that are within the globe. Talk of Asia, Africa, talk of America. We have members, within all those areas. So within this alliance that is being supported by Family for Every Child, you'd realize that we do have themes that we are working on, and what we have done is we have created working groups that focus on different themes. And as an organization, we participate in quite a number of working groups within the alliance, and one of the working groups that has brought me today with this issue that we are discussing is focusing on the prevention of sexual exploitation or sexual abuse against children. So back around 2017, we had an exchange and learning visit in the Philippines, where we met as a working group with members that were coming from within the alliance. And basically the reason why we had this exchange and learning visit, we wanted to explore the extent or the influence of social norms on the care of boys who are affected by sexual violence. And during this meeting, that's when we realized that there was a lot of violence, that was a lot of hidden sexual exploitation that was actually happening, within boys, but it was going, unreported. So at the meeting, the recommendation that was given at the meeting was that we come up with a global desk review where we would, look at, the extent of sexual violence globally, amongst boys. So the desk review was done after the exchange visit, and one of the recommendations that actually came out of that desk review was that we carry out a research. Research is within our local context, so that we'll be able to see the extent of sexual violence within boys. So this is how we came up as an organization to arriving to conducting this research in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we hear a lot about advocacy to do with women and girls. Yes. Why boys now? What is happening?
You see, now this is the challenge. We have kind of created that gap, or we continue to create that gap. a lot of advocacy and a lot of work has been done in terms of, supporting the girl child, preventing sexual exploitation and abuse against the boy child, while we've kind of turned a blind eye, towards the boy child. And, like I've said, that because of the social norms, that we have, sexual exploitation has been happening, in the boy child, and it has been going, unreported. Yeah.
Yes, a lot of times. Does this have to do anything to do with the masculinity and how masculinity and sexuality is perceived by boys?
Yes, masculinity, from the research that we have done, it plays, a very big role, especially when it comes to reporting. Because one thing that we've discovered was that there was a lot of underreporting that is being done in terms of sexual exploitation against boys, and masculinity comes in, whereby, in our culture, when we were brought up, by our parents, boys are supposed to be strong, and mkomana acheme, boys don't cry. So it becomes difficult, for a boy to go and report that they've been sexually assaulted, when you expect that, the boys are the ones who are supposed to be strong, they're supposed to be on top of the situation. So in most cases, it goes unreported, because once you go and report, like I remember when we were doing this, when we were carrying out the study, one of the participants from the study actually said, it's so embarrassing, when your friends know that you have reported that you were, you are sexually abused, anzi wakaitwa mkazi, those are masculinity issues. So yeah, masculinity does play a very big role in affecting, care for boys affected by sexual violence. Yeah.
Okay, so in reality, would we say, in reality, are boys really the affected, or they are the perpetrators? I mean, I guess obviously a greater number. Would we be judging, would we be overstating it if we said, if we were to comment that a greater number of boys should be labeled as the perpetrators than really the victims?
Yeah, really, I cannot say, because I have to back my facts with research. So like if we are looking at this research that we have done, it's more of a scoping study. It was done in 3 districts. And Zimbabwe has got how many districts? It's got 10 districts. So it's not quite, a population based. So you find that one of the recommendations that actually came out of this research was that we need to do a population based, so that we really, understand the extent to which, this is happening, the extent to which, whether boys, are more affected, than girls. But yeah, I would like to say, generally, it seems women are more affected, when it comes to sexual violence, but also boys are affected, though women may be more affected. We don't have statistics, to prove this. And in terms of whether boys, are perpetrators or not, one of the things that actually came out of this research was that some of the boys that are violated, and it goes unreported, the boys don't get any form of support, they end up being perpetrators as well. So yes, boys, they are perpetrators, and at the same time, violence is also perpetrated against them. They're also victims. Yeah.
So according to your research, who were the people,
the perpetrators
group of people were abusing boys? Was it close family members, friends, strangers?
Yeah.
Where exactly did the greater number of perpetrators come from?
Yeah. Just like, sexual violence against girls, when we talk about sexual violence against women, in most cases it's people who are close, because here we're talking about children. So sometimes, they are violated by people who are actually close to them. They could be relatives. We talk of sodomy. Some children, they're actually sodomized by their relatives. And not just relatives, even people who are not relatives, like the boys in the streets. You know, they were talking about you know, those women with money. They're saying at night they come and they pick us up, they take us maybe to their homes or to the hotel. They clean them up. After being cleaned up, and they then abuse them. So you know, it can be anyone. They could be relatives, you know, they could be people who are not relatives, they could be other men, they could be other women, yeah.
Okay, and what's your take on the Zimbabwean definition of rape?
Yeah, you see, this is one challenge that is coming up, you know, from the research that we have done. Because in terms, when you go into the courts, you know, when a boy claims that they have been raped, the way they different from, you know, when a girl say they've been raped. Because when it's a boy, they normally term it as assault. And you find that assault, the sentence for assault is different from the sentence that is given, you know, to someone who has been raped. So you find perpetrators are also actually taking advantage, you know, of this. You know, they would know that if you rape a boy, if you are caught, you know, the sentence that you get is less than the sentence that you get if you're caught, you know, assaulting or raping a girl. So that's why you see this concern is actually growing. So our first port of call, you know, was this research, because we needed the facts that could be our basis for advocacy. And this report, you know, if you look at the recommendations that are coming from the conclusions and the recommendations that are coming from this research, you know, they are a basis, you know, for our advocacy as an organization. Like you just mentioned, you know, you're talking about the laws that we have. It's one gap, you know, that was actually identified as an area that needs to be reviewed or improved. Because basically we are saying if a boy has been raped and a girl has been raped, you know, the sentence that is given, you know, should be the same one, should be the same sentence, you know. And also one other recommendation that's actually coming from this research is also focusing on issues around the awareness. You know, this is similar to, you've been talking about advocacy, the need to create awareness on the effect of social norms. You know, because social norms, you know, these are things that happen within the community. And, you know, we need to bring out these issues to the community, that these social norms, you know, when we bring up, you know, our children, our boys, and we tell them that, you know, boys don't cry. You know, it's good to be strong. But, you know, to some extent, we need to see how this is affecting, you know, our children, especially in terms of care. How is it affecting your care for boys that have been sexually violated? So, yeah, we need to advocate, you know, and take this awareness, you know, into the communities, so that they understand, you know, that yes, sexual violence does happen to boys as well, and boys need to be protected and supported.
So I'm just thinking now that maybe our viewers are wondering what we are talking about when we're talking about sexual violence, and particularly sexual violence against boys. What exactly are we talking about?
Yeah, when we talk about sexual violence, we are looking at any sexual act, you know, that is done, you know, to a child. And, you know, when we talk about children, you know, children, they don't consent, you see. So when we talk about sexual acts, exposing children to sexual acts, you know, it comes in many different forms. It could be touching, you know, children in private parts. It could be exposing children to pornography. You know, you talk of things like sodomizing children. All that is sexual violence.
Okay, and again, for our viewers, who is the child?
Right. According to the UN definition, and even the definition in our constitution, in our Zimbabwean constitution, a child is anyone who's below the age of 18. Yeah.
Okay. So now we've got a child below the age of 18. We've got a 16-year-old. Our law says a 16-year-old can consent. So how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, this is a problem that we have been advocating, you know, as CSOs, because it's one of the gaps that we have seen that is, you know, in our laws. You know, we need to bring together the laws that we have, because if we are talking about abuse, sexual abuse, and we say a child is anyone below the age of 18, and yet at the same time we say a girl who's 16 years can consent, already, you know, there are issues there. So we need to review our laws so that they are aligned, so that they can speak the same language. And I would like to believe that this is something that is already being attended to. You know, laws, they have to pass through the cabinet. You know, there are government processes that need to be done. So it's not something that just happens overnight. But as we are aware as a civil society, this is something that is being attended to by our government. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So now, with regards to sexual violence against boys, what are the drivers?
Right. So yeah, the research has actually helped to expose, you know, some of these drivers that expose boys to sexual violence. We do have harmful practices, you know, that are done by boys. You know, they say boys being boys. You know, sometimes they want to experiment, you know, on things that end up exposing them, you know, to violence, sexual violence, you know, things like pornography. You see, these days we are talking about, you know, online safety. You know, most of our children, they are being exposed to, you know, pornography, you know, through online access to, you know, to pornography. And we also have other drivers that include issues that we've been talking about, issues to do with social norms. You know, they also drive, you know, children to be exposed to sexual violence. Yeah. And as we were speaking to the boys in the streets, you know, during the research, we have realized that poverty, you know, is also one driver that exposes boys to sexual violence, because they want the money to survive. Because some of them, you know, I remember, you know, they say to us, some of the women that come and pick them up, sometimes they want to use them for ritual, you know, the ritual purposes, so they can take a child and then they go and they touch them, so that they, you know, they want to collect, you know, their sperms for ritual purposes. And they know that this actually has got effects on them, because they actually highlighted that some of them have actually gone mad because of this. But, you know, because they want the money, you know, they just have to go through it so that they get the money. So in the end, they're exposed to sexual exploitation. So yeah, there are quite a number of these drivers, yeah, that were exposed by the research. Yeah. Right. So the research, the first thing, it actually helped, or yeah, it confirmed that sexual violence in boys really is an issue that is happening, that needs to be addressed. It also highlighted that there is need for awareness, you know, within the communities, so that we discuss, you know, and talk about social norms and how they are affecting, you know, boys, the care of boys that have been affected by sexual violence. You know, we are not saying our social norms or our culture are bad. You know, we do have cultural practices that are good. And it's important that, you know, we create that dialogue with the communities, so that we discuss some of the norms or cultures that are harmful, that can be considered as harmful practices. So yeah, there is that need, you know, to create awareness, you know, within the communities, so that we discuss and try and get rid of social norms or cultures that we feel, expose boys to, to sexual exploitation. Then another conclusion that came out of the research was, the fact that service provision, we have a challenge, when it comes to service provision for boys that have been affected by violence. Most of the service providers, they work on or they support girls that have been affected by sexual violence. So they've got experience, in dealing with girls that have been affected with sexual violence. But now when it comes to the boy child, they don't have experience. Because, sometimes the way you support a boy who has been affected by sexual violence and the way you support a girl who has been affected by sexual violence is totally different. We've been talking about issues to do with social norms. Because as boys, we have our ego. So, you want to deal with that ego, because as a boy, it's difficult maybe to comprehend that, I've been abused, like I've been saying, some were saying, waitwa mkazi, you've been made a woman, that kind of a thing, and some will be laughing you, in the community. So service providers they lack skills on providing support to boys affected by sexual violence. So the recommendation was that there is need to train service providers, so that they are able to deal with this and support boys that have been affected. Then the other recommendation that came out of the research was the need, to align our laws, so that they also criminalize, violence, against boys. Because like what we were just sharing, that when it comes to a girl who has been sexually violated, the sentence that is given, to the perpetrator is higher than the sentence that is given to the perpetrator who would have violated, the boy child. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you so much for the initiative. So now I'm holding here a study that you did on sexual violence against boys in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Sexual violence affecting boys in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So how is your work as FOST related to this study?
Right. So as an organization, like I have said, that we are responding to the needs of orphaned and vulnerable children. And one thing that we have realized as an organization, we participate in different fora. And you find one of the forums that we participate in deals with prevention of sexual violence against children. Maybe just to give you a brief of a background, we are a member of a global alliance called Family for Every Child, which is basically an alliance of local CSOs, which are coming from about over 35 countries. And basically within this global alliance, we have got working groups that are focusing on different thematic areas. And like I've said, one of the thematic area that we are working on within that alliance focuses on prevention of sexual exploitation or sexual violations or sexual violence against children. So as an organization, we do participate in these platforms so that we are able to, provide the necessary support to the children that we are supporting as an organization. Yeah. Every research has got its limitations and delimitations. I think our major challenge, was, getting the children who have been getting the boy children who have been sexually violated. Like what I said, it's easy to get, the girls who are sexually, because they've already been empowered, to speak out, unlike with boys. This is something that has been hidden, something that has been going on without being reported. So getting the children had been was a bit of a challenge, but like I've said, that as an organization, we worked with other organizations that are already working with children that have been affected, with sexual violence, like Family Support Trust. They've examined and supported boys who had been sexually violated, and they'll be having records of those children. So it was easy to get victims, from those organizations. And with Simukai, they're already dealing with the boys in the streets, so it was easy to get the victims, yeah, in the research. Yeah, so ZNC WAC, they are coordinating the Child Rights Coalition. So we also wanted to interview, other organizations, so that we could also get an understanding of how other organizations are dealing, with this phenomenon. So that's where ZNCWC came in, linking us with all those national organizations that are operating in Zimbabwe. That also there is the government logo there for the Department of Social Welfare. As an organization, we are registered under the Department of Social Welfare, and they are our parent ministry. So whatever we do, we report to them, because we are complementing the efforts of the government. So they are the ones who actually own this research. It's their research. So they were on board when we were doing this research, and ensuring that ensuring quality. Quality control is very important, when you do these kind of researches. So they were there, monitoring and ensuring that every step that we were taking, it was up to standard. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, my advice, to all the parents out there, is that sexual exploitation against the boy child does happen. It's real. It's something that is happening. It could be happening as we speak right now in your own home, and probably it's something that you haven't seen, or you haven't realized. So it's something that we need to be on the lookout. And like I have said, it's important that we engage communities, so that we talk about this, we talk about the social norms that are affecting the boys. I think education is key, educating the communities about this. Then in terms of how you can actually notice that your child has been sexually exploited, I think just like, when we talk about, the girl child, there are things that you can see physically. There are things that you can see, affecting the mental side of the child. There are things that you can see that can affect the child emotionally. So maybe physically, you can actually see bruises. Because sometimes, this is normally when something is done against your will, sometimes you try to fight it. So, the child can be bruised. And we've been talking about homosexuality. Maybe the child was involved in homosexuality. You can see the child will have maybe physical injuries on his private parts, maybe on the anal part of the child. And then in terms of the mental stability of the child, the child can have, challenges maybe in concentration. you know, and particularly teachers, you know, they spend more time with the children, and usually they're the ones who are quickly to pick this in class, whereby a child maybe will be having challenges in concentrating for a long time. You know, they will be absent-minded. You know, they are in the class, but they are not there. Physically they are there, but mentally they are not there. Then emotionally, you know, you can have children who maybe begin to exert some, you know, tantrums. Yeah, so those are some of the things. They're quite a number. We really need a workshop, you know, to go through this. But maybe in summary, these are some of the things, you know, that you can see, you know, as a parent. And sometimes you can see a child, you know, with children, particularly children who are below the age of 6. You know, sometimes, you know, they can even show you, because normally when we want to see if the child was sexually abused, you know, we give them dolls, and, you know, we call it play therapy. You know, as they play with those dolls, they'll actually show you, you know, what happened, you know, what happened to them, how the perpetrator assaulted them. They'll actually do that using the doll. So you can actually use play therapy if you want to see whether the child was sexually, you know, assaulted. Yeah. Okay. So there are quite many. Yeah.
Yeah, true. And yes, this is a very good research that you did. Sexual violence against boys is there, and people have been silent about it for too long, and it's time to start making noise about it.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's going to affect him today, and it's going to affect you tomorrow, directly or indirectly, whether you are related or whether you are a stranger now. Tomorrow it may affect you. Right. So how can organizations reach out to you if they would want to work with you? Maybe there are going to be other researches. You said this research was in 3 provinces. There is going to be need to research on the other 7. How can organizations reach out to you?
Yeah. So, so we are very much open to working with other organizations. Like, it's evidenced, you know, by the collaboration that we have done with other organizations. When we were doing the research, we could have done it alone, but we felt we need to collaborate. So like you have said, funding permitting, you know, one of the recommendations from this study was that we need to do a population based research, so that we are able to know the extent to which this is happening in Zimbabwe. But this has been a basis, you know, for other studies, you know, that can be done, because already this was a qualitative study. And, you know, with qualitative studies, you can actually pick a very small sample, you know, and get in-depth, you know, to get in-depth understanding of the phenomenon. So it was actually a step, you know, towards, you know, informing and confirming that sexual violence in boys is happening in Zimbabwe. Then as an organization, we will be commemorating, you know, as Family for Every Child, as a member of Family for Every Child, we annually, you know, we've started commemorating, you know, a day which we are calling BUD, which simply stands for Blue Umbrella Day. You know, just like other commemorations, we have got the World AIDS Day that is commemorated globally. So in terms of, you know, commemorating the gains and creating that awareness, you know, on the effects of sexual violence against boys and the need to protect boys, we now have a day, you know, that is also commemorated globally, and we are calling it the Blue Umbrella Day. And this day is commemorated on the 16th of April. Unfortunately, this year, the 16th of April, it actually collided with some holidays, Easter holidays. So what we have done, you know, we have postponed the celebrations, you know, just like what we do with other celebrations, you know, they can be done, you know, after the actual day. So we will be celebrating the Blue Umbrella Day in Bindura, that is Mashonaland Central, which was one of the districts where we carried out this research on the 13th of May. Yeah, so we are going to be having some activities that will be done, before the day, where we'll be creating awareness, on the need to protect and support boys who have been sexually violated. And then on the day, we are going to have some processions, and then you have some solidarity messages that will be coming from different partners and different stakeholders in Bindura.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And who is welcome to join these celebrations?
Everyone is welcome to join, as long as you have got a stake in this and you are interested in ensuring that boys are protected from sexual violence. You are welcome to come, and you can actually contact us on our email, forst@forst.co.zw, or you can contact me on blessing@forst.co.zw. They are all small letters. And our phone number is the Harare number, 309-800 up to 16. And my cell number, if you want to contact me directly for business, that's 0772-819-615. Then we also have, for more information, we also have a website where you could actually visit and see the work that we are doing. Just simply type www.forst.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much, Blessing. It was nice having this chat with you, and yes, raising our awareness is the game nowadays for change, right? So this is the study that Forst did, and for a copy, you can follow up on the contacts that Blessing gave us, or we're going to check the comment section for the soft copy. Blessing will provide one for us, and we'll impute it in the comment section. Do you have any last words to say to the viewers?
Yeah, maybe just to say that sexual violence in boys really does exist, and as a nation we need to be vigilant and ensure that our children, particularly the boys, they are also protected. And maybe a word to our policymakers, the government, there is need, for us to review some of the policies that we have in our country. Yes, we do have good policies, but it's important that we align our policies so that they also criminalize, violence that is being perpetrated against boys equally to the way that we criminalize violence when it's perpetrated against the girls. And then lastly, there is important, for capacity building, for our service providers, both looking at the government and also the NGOs that are providing support to children that have been sexually exploited, so that they have the skills to be able to also support, boys that are sexually violated.
Thank you so much, Blessing, for coming through.
You're welcome.
So this was Blessing talking to us about sexual violence in boys. Check out the soft copy of this report in the comment section. I am Charlene Taruwona, your host, and until we meet again, goodbye.